Hey everybody, it's the Floor Lord, and I wanted to go over some things that have been brought up by the developers in the Discord. Now, this might be a little bit older. I'm starting all the way back here on the 15th. That was about 10 days ago. So I'm catching up on about a little more than a week. But basically, I want to get down to the last thing and read through that. So we're going to kind of skim over this first beginning portion. But some good things that are on here I wanted to show you guys. The first one is we've got an updated map on here. So this shows everything that's on here, which is really nice. It's got the new updated area. Oh, and it even has if you looked at it, it's also got the golf course. So it's gonna be really nice. Okay. Moving a little bit farther down, they're talking about revamping the tutorial area, and they'll go down about that a little bit more. This was just before the conveyor upgrades, so we've got basically slow, fast, and ultra fast, which is kind of nice. This is the new tutorial and pondering system. They're still working on it, so that's why I'm kind of speeding through it quite a bit. Interesting way of looking at Oaklands. There were a little over 2,500 people who voted, and it looks like almost half do it for building and logic, which is amazing. I voted for trading, economy, and grinding for limited items. I love grinding. Not necessarily for limited items, that's always a plus, but I just like to grind and play and explore the game. A few people, new players, don't play Oaklands is like 100. I don't know why you're following the typical developers if you don't play Oaklands. I mean, it's a fantastic game. You should do so. And then put it in the thread below. We've had a couple of votes, and they talked about quite a few things that were in there. Would you be interested in new core gameplay mechanics such as fishing? Yes, of course. Almost 2,000 votes for yes. And then this is the tutorial area again, pondering and whatnot. Them working on stream. Oakland updates. This was for the conveyor belts, I do believe, that came out. And then should we add plantable seeds that grow offline? Has planter limit on your property? This is not yet planned. Lots of people said yes, so lots of people thought that was a good idea. Let's move a little bit farther down. Would you be interested in more UGC items themed after stuff you find in Oakland? Absolutely. I think that makes it a lot of fun. I love Oaklands. I also love Oaklands. Yep. Of course, I love Oaklands 1. And then this is kind of what I was talking about. This is why I went kind of fast. Hoover said he had to disable the new pondering tutorial. It was performing worse than the older one. They're going to introduce pondering in other ways, hopefully fix the conversation issues in the new pondering tutorial. And then he's going to be live. Yes. Talking about things that won. And then they were playing. If you built a golf course, he was going to play your golf courses. Keep your socks on. This weekend probably won't be a content update, but a quality of life. So that was 2 days ago. So hopefully they're going to have an update about some fixes and things like that. Okay, this is kind of what I wanted to talk about. So if you guys watch my videos, I did a live stream earlier this last week, and it was bugs and other issues and things like that, and I feel like it kind of just went on to a griping session, and that's not what I intended. I wasn't trying to just complain. I was hoping that I could point things out and kind of say, hey, here are some solutions, to things that I see in the game that could be fixed or better and things like that. But I'm not sure if they watched my video. I hope that they did. I know that Brick made a video soon after mine, which was similar in terms of things that were bugging him. One of the biggest things was scaffolding, which that we'll talk about in this. But I kind of want to just read through this, which is kind of nice because I think they touched on almost every single thing that I had a complaint about, other than vehicle design revamp. I really don't care one way or another. If it comes in, that's great. It's not going to change a whole lot. I think there were a little bit of complaints about the new semi-truck, and they said that they're going to address those kinds of things. But before we start, make sure that you do subscribe. Definitely like if you enjoy hearing these updates when it comes from the developers and things like that. I'll be able to make some more videos, hopefully bring some sneak peeks like I have in the past, and keep you guys all up to date as to what the developers are saying. Okay, so to get into the beginning, this says communication on future updates and previous promised content. One of the complaints that I had for the developers is a lack of communication. They have said a whole lot of things in the past when it comes to items that they want to bring into the game, such as quests or fishing or, hinting at updates to different areas and creating more content, and then nothing really comes of it. So, this starts out and says, hey everyone, I'm going to be providing some context on previously sneak peeked content and our plans for this sort of stuff. I've noticed, and you probably as well, that we've shown a lot of stuff, and more often than not, a lot of our promises and spoilers don't come to fruition. Why this happens? Sometimes we are a little overambitious on showcasing what we are working on. A common mistake we've made, and that we're trying to fix. Good. In doing so is showing stuff before things are finalized on our internal roadmap. This means that even if we have shown something, it may not come out for a while or even years. Just as a recent example, golf took a year for us to design. Other concepts, such as the objectinators, ended up being canceled, with plans to implement a different similar behavior item, which I think is totally fine. So, some of these things, such as quests. I've personally spent a lot of time thinking about quests. We've been making steady progress, but I just haven't been happy with how they are. Some things to consider is when we release quests, that is the final design. You aren't able to make mutable changes once a core feature of this is out in production, which I totally understand. They want to send something into the game that works, that is functional, and that makes sense. I totally get that. So he continues and says, so we're making some changes on how quests will be added. With this, we will be splitting the menu into 3 categories: quests, achievements, and the index. More on this soon. And this means our ETA for quests is going to change. We don't have a timeline yet. And that is fine. Excuse me. I am totally fine with them taking their time and bringing us good quality content. All I'm asking for is a little bit of transparency when it comes to this game and what they're trying to do. For example, like with quests, if they're saying, hey, we're working on it, we're doing our best to try and make this happen, it's just not where we think it's, or where we would like it. And so, we want to send you a good thing. We haven't forgotten about it, but, our tentative time frame is before the end of the year. You always want to you don't want to oversell it, and you don't want to get everyone's hopes up and make promises that you can't fulfill. So I would say, if they say, something realistic where they're like, hey, we want to bring this out, before the end of the year. Their goal might be before the end of the summer, and that's totally fine. But if they were to say something like, we want it before the end of the year, and then we get it in the summertime, we're pleasantly surprised because we heard that it was going to be, before the end of the year, which it was. So they're actually fulfilling what they said, but it is quite discouraging when it comes to any type of game that delays happen. And I totally understand delays can happen, but I think it would be better to push it out and make a realistic type of goal. But then, if it comes out early, then people are pleasantly surprised because they weren't expecting it. So, anyways, that's enough ranting on the quests. Okay, Desert Revamp Part 2. We have not forgotten about it. Our plan is to introduce this in a future update, potentially this summer. Fantastic. We don't have any promises yet. That's fine. Everything for this Part 2 is already designed. Fantastic. We have just been waiting for certain features to be completed, such as enemies, and I am totally fine with that. Everything about that, about the Desert Revamp, is exactly what I want to hear. And that's all I really want is transparency. If they just say, hey, Desert Revamp, we're working on it, and guess what? We're ahead of schedule in these kinds of things. However, we are still waiting on, these kinds of things. That's totally fine, because then I can understand, reading this, I can be like, oh, okay, so they're having a little bit of issues in terms of enemies and how they want to code it, kind of a thing. They want to get that right. I'm fine with that. Hearing that everything for Part 2 is already designed, that gets me excited, because then I'm like, oh, they're ready to go. Like, they're waiting on this enemies portion, but everything for Part 2 is already designed. It's that part's ready to go. So anyways, moving on. Live events. We know we haven't been doing a great job on these. It's something that we're trying to improve on. We want to do more in the future, but we don't want to mess this up again. So we're going to wait until we are 100% sure that we can accomplish this correctly. And that's fine with me too. I think the live events that they have done, they've been okay. I mean, I'm not expecting live events like they do in Fortnite or things like that. But I mean, the live events that they've had, I've been I've been pleasantly impressed with the duck event, with the meteor event, multiple meteor events, the flood event. You know, all of these kinds of things. I think they're doing a fine job, and it's not like, I don't think that they need to really kill themselves over, you know, mandatorily putting in, you know, live events that are scheduled or something like that. Every 6 months they have to do a live event, or even once a year. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of just a fun thing. I like them. I think it brings a lot of fun to the world and things like that. But it's not an end all be all for me. All right, fishing. We are still in the early design phase for fishing. This is discouraging to hear. I totally understand. I'm glad that they're letting us know. But it is unfortunate to hear that they're still in the early design phase. Um, like previously stated, we can only do this once, which I totally get. Since we want to do they want it to be a core mechanic. It has to be correctly balanced. Our release goal is still being discussed, and that's fine. It is what it is. I was really looking forward to fishing. I mean, they've been talking about fishing for a long time. Okay. Secret Update Friday. Oh, I'm so glad that they're talking about this. Um, we are open to bringing this back in the future. The problem that we noticed that a lot of players wouldn't actually figure out what this content was. This could be frustrating, so we're trying to find a way to make this more inclusive for everyone. I mean, but I think that's half the fun. The only thing that I could say on this, it was really discouraging to hear everyone complain to the developers when they brought in the Burning Skull. That one was an extremely specific and confusing item to try and get. And I totally understand the frustration of the players, because at the time, it's a little bit different now because this was on the OG map. Um, we had the we had the magma trees that were sprouting around the lighthouse, and you had to chop down a magma tree but leave a stump, and then you had to take your skull that you got from the skull rock underneath the trap door, and then you had to place it on top of the magma tree stump. Not only that, but then you had to leave it there for like 2 minutes. And so I could understand why people were getting confused, because developers were saying, I think the hint was a capital B, a space, and then a capital S lowercase k. So it was a BSK. So that stood for Burning Skull. But, when they were adding things into the game with the developers, it was like an item. And so you had to try and find it, like the living axe and things like that. But lots of people are trying to figure this out. That's a very specific way of getting an item. My suggestion, and take it for what it's worth, I don't know if the developers are going to watch this or not, but if they brought back the Secret Update Friday, do it exactly how you were doing it. If you're adding in a secret item, or if you even did like I noticed that the pink lotuses and the lily pads were added into the game before the update, the big update. They were showing up in Ook Lake. So if you did if you did a secret update on that where you just said, LP, or sorry, yeah, LP for the lily pad, or the P, LPPL. You got the pink lotuses and the lily pads. It they're just in the game, and so you can kind of find them, and then that will create discussion for a lot of people to kind of talk about, like, oh, I figured out what LP is. They added this into the game, and this is where you can find it, kind of a thing. And it'll start having discussions on Discord. It might be, if they created a new chat area for um, secret updates. That way we can have discussions. I mean, we could probably do it in Oak General and things like that. But if there was an area where we could gather together as Oaklanders to try and figure out what these secret updates are for fun, I think that would be a nice thing, because I think that's what builds a larger community, is the communication and trying to figure things out. What's been added into the game, who can figure it out first, kind of a thing. And then you get kudos for finding things out. In regards to the burning skull, like I said, very specific item, very specific way of getting it. If you wouldn't, if we didn't get enough hints, I don't think anybody would have found it or have done it. I think somebody got it on accident because they left their skull next to, a magma tree or something like that, and they just got it. But I remember when people were talking about it, and finally, they figured it out. But people were harassing the developers, being like, "Give us a clue, give us a hint." We can't. And this was like, I don't know, not even 3 hours after the release or after the update. Demanding, hints and clues and things like that. I would say, if it came to the developers and things like that, give it 5 days. If you send out a release of a secret update Friday, like the Burning Skull, you just release it and let people complain. Let people gripe and complain. And then after 24 hours, just throw in terms of like the Oak News or the Oak Update, just give like a one-word clue. Like magma. And then another 24 hours, you can say head. And then on day 3, you can say place. And day 4, you can say 2 minutes or, something. But, you kind of lead people to discover it rather than just giving it away because you're tired of people complaining at you. But if you let the community know that this is what you were going to be doing and this is how we're going to be, rolling out a secret update, kind of a thing, if the expectations are there, then I think you would get less. You're still gonna have people grab and complain and be like, tell me, I need to know. But yeah, I think if you just kind of trickled out the information or the hints and things like that, that would lengthen out how people are working on it, but then get more and more specific. It's kind of like a puzzle that you start getting more and more pieces, and then it becomes more clear. And after a week, if nobody has figured it out, then maybe you can just say, hey, go here, do this, and that's fine. Okay, moving on. Vehicle design revamp. I can promise you that we are still working on this. It's a very slow process. I don't really have much to share other than that it's being worked on, I promise. I mean, they have released some vehicle update and then they recanted it. They recalled it back. This is not an end-all be-all for me, because it doesn't really change anything core to the game. It just makes the vehicles look different. One thing that they did talk about in terms of the updates, and we'll talk about that. Actually, let's just jump in there real quick. Um, was it in here? Oh, I don't know where I saw it. My bad. But they basically said that they fixed. Oh, that's what it was. It was in testing. It was in testing. So we'll talk about this, but um, the box semi truck has thicker walls. This means that there's a little bit more of an invisible collision, but it should hold the items better. The box semi truck will no longer unweld items when it's flipped over. That was another complaint that people had. Added more weight to the bottom of the semi and changed its center of mass. Loading your property. Oh, and that just moves on to other things. So, in terms of the redesign of the vehicle, that's going to be a good thing. That's them listening to people, which is fantastic. But that's the only one that I really cared about for vehicle design. Okay. More lore. Everyone loves a good story. If this is something that people want more of, we can definitely work to provide more. Please. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. 100%. Yes. I'm going to be working on my videos. I'm trying to work on sets right now and building them to create lore, to create story. I want to help. I want to come up with more so that we can all talk as a community as to theories about why people are doing things and why this is happening and where this is coming from and who is doing this. I think that makes it more immersive when we're playing a game as opposed to, I guess I'm going to go and grind some more sapphire to make some money. Or I'm going to, go on a palladium run, or I'm gonna go to the magma cave and get some more. Like, money's great, but I think if you can start to see more, get little nuggets here and there, that makes it so that it gives more of an exploratory kind of sense, and maybe this can be tied in with achievements and things like that. I'm not sure. But yes, please, 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 100%. More lore. I'm all for it. Okay, bug fixes. I'm actively working on fixing a lot of irritating bugs. Sometimes it can be hard to figure these out. Figure out these sorts of issues. Some bugs take a few minutes to fix, others days or even months. Totally understand. Other updates. If we missed anything, let me know. I will update this as needed. And then that's all for now. We'll try to get better at communicating this sort of stuff from now on. Please, yes. That's all I say we. That's all that I'm asking for is a little bit of transparency from the developers. I don't need to know every single, secret detail that you're trying to add into the game. But I would like to know which direction, you are focusing on when it comes to the game. Okay, and yeah, let us know if you're lacking. I just wanted to touch base, going back to that testing news thing. In terms of bugs, this kind of talks about that. But loading your property will now create an invisible collision box on the client. This should stop you from falling through the floor alongside your items falling through. They're still investigating why this is happening. And then this was one of the biggest complaints that I had. Brick had this complaint as well. But scaffolding and tall scaffolding no longer flings you around when you drag it. Great, thanks. I'm excited to see that come into the game. And that's basically it. So I hope that you guys have learned something. I hope that if you want to get involved with the Discord, or even in whether it's the typical developer Discord or my own, you can join me on Discord. I've just started. We're kind of small right now, but we'd love to build it back up. We'd love to have you join us. Give us your opinions. Give us your ideas and thoughts when it comes to lore, when it comes to things you might want to see included into the game. I'm trying to build a community around this Oaklands game. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I'd love to see you guys there. If you want to join the typical developers and start talking with other Oaklanders and like-minded individuals, definitely do that. Definitely the biggest thing is get involved. Because, the more involved you are, the more I think the developers are inclined to listen to a community with what they want. When it came to Brick and adding things into the game, they did a lot of things because he's popular, and they added the goblins and things like that. They have the whole Acid Lance thing now. I think it's all for the better. I think it's going to make the game fantastic if they can add little bits and areas and ideas from all different kinds of people. I'd love to see Oaklands hit a ton of awards with Roblox. If whether it's building or grinding or storyline or however you want to play Oaklands, you can do that. I mean, in the Acid Lands, you can fight bad guys. They've got a boss in there. I'd love to see Oaklands add in some obbies kind of a thing, getting into a difficult area, that you have to pass a certain area to get things that are more expensive. Anyways, I feel like I'm rambling now, but if you got this far into the video, I would very much appreciate it if you would subscribe. Again, I really appreciate it. It helps me know that people want to watch this kind of content, but also it will also help in building the channel and then building a community. If you also like it, be sure to like the video and then also leave a comment. I love to read comments. I try and reply back to every comment and ask kind of thoughtful questions so that we can start having a discussion and things like that. So I will leave it at that. I really appreciate hearing from you guys, and we will see you in the next video.